In this new world, people remember the future the way they remember the past, not as vision, not as warning, but as ordinary memory, arriving quietly, sitting in the mind alongside everything else. The catalog room in the morning has a particular quality to it, not because of the light, which is the same flat overhead light it always is, but because of what the hands already know before they begin. The keeper reaches into a box of unclaimed objects, things left on benches, in station lockers, on the floors of public washrooms, and the fingers close around something before the eyes have quite found it. Because the hands remember handling it, remember the weight and the edge of it, and the present moment of picking it up arrives already worn smooth by the future memory of having done so a dozen times. The box is cardboard, slightly soft at the corners from handling. The objects inside are wrapped in paper or loose in the bottom, and each one has a quality of being known before it is seen. That is just how it is here. The archive occupies the lower floor of a building that was once something else, and the ceiling is lower than it should be, and the shelving runs in rows close enough together that two people passing each other have to turn sideways. And all of this is familiar in the way that the keeper's own hands are familiar, not because it is pleasant, particularly, but because it has been known for a long time from both directions. The keeper has future memories of this room going back years or forward years, and the room in those memories looks much the same as it does now, which is either reassuring or simply neutral, and the keeper has never decided which. The catalog system is straightforward. Each object gets a tag. Each tag gets a number. The number goes in the ledger, and the ledger sits on a shelf near the door. And the shelf near the door is where the keeper starts every morning, pulling the ledger down and opening it to the last entry. And the pen is already in hand before the ledger is open, because the future memory of writing the first entry of the day is so familiar by now that the body moves ahead of the decision. Writing a catalog number on a tag is a small action. It takes perhaps 4 seconds. But there is a particular texture to it when the future memory is already there, when the keeper knows, from a memory that has not yet become present, that this same number will be written again on a replacement tag, because the first one will be lost somewhere between the shelf and the retrieval desk. The keeper writes the number now with that knowledge sitting quietly alongside, not to prevent anything, not to write more carefully, or to double-check the placement of the tag. Just knowing and writing anyway, and the two things, the present action and the future memory of repeating it, settle into each other the way 2 pages of a book settle when you close it. Nobody changes much based on what they remember ahead. That is one of the things that becomes clear early, and then becomes so obvious that it stops being a thought at all. The future memory is not instruction. It is not a plan. It arrives the way the memory of last Tuesday arrives, already happened, already complete, not asking for anything. The objects on the shelves have their own quality of this. A ceramic mug, white with a chip at the rim, sits on shelf 7 and has sat there for 11 weeks, and the keeper has a future memory of taking it down, turning it over, reading the number on its tag, and returning it to the shelf. That memory has no date attached to it. Future memories rarely do. They arrive without timestamps, without sequence, and the keeper has learned, the way everyone has learned, because there is no other way, to hold them loosely, to let them sit in the mind without demanding to know when they will become present. The mug will be handled again. That is all the memory says. The keeper does not know if it is tomorrow or in 3 months, and the not knowing is not uncomfortable. It is just the ordinary condition of things. The archive smells like paper, and something faintly metallic, which is the smell of the shelving, and there is always a low sound from the street above. The building is half below grade, that comes through the small windows near the ceiling as a general murmur, not specific enough to be words or footsteps, just the sound of the city moving. The keeper works in this sound, the way a person works in weather. They have stopped noticing. There is a tag in the keeper's pocket. It has been there for some weeks now. It is small and rectangular and stamped with a number, 4471, and slightly worn at the two corners that sit against the pocket seam, because it has been taken out and turned over and put back enough times that the metal has learned the shape of the handling. Every tag in the archive corresponds to an object. This one does not. The object it was made for has not arrived, or has not been brought in yet, or perhaps was brought in and then claimed before the tag could be attached. The keeper does not know. What the keeper does know, from a future memory that sits as clearly as any other, is that the object will eventually arrive, and it will be a small wooden box, unremarkable, the kind that might have held stationery or a set of small tools. And the keeper will attach the tag and write the number in the ledger and set the box on a shelf. The memory has no season in it, no quality of light that would suggest a time of year. It is already known, not yet arrived, and the keeper has made a kind of peace with that, which is not really peace so much as it is the ordinary state of carrying a memory that hasn't become present yet. The keeper turns the tag in a pocket without thinking about it. It has become a habit the way touching a sore tooth becomes a habit, not for any reason, just because the thing is there. Across the archive, on the far side of the shelving rows, there is a window that faces the interior of the building rather than the street, and through it the keeper can sometimes see the hallway where unclaimed items are brought in by the Transit Authority's collection staff, who come twice a week with a rolling cart and a manifest, and who have the manner of people who do a repetitive job without distress. Not bored exactly, but settled into the rhythm of it, moving through the motions with the ease of long familiarity. They set things down on the intake counter with a soft knock of object against surface, and that sound carries through the window, and the keeper knows that sound from future memory and from present experience both, and the two versions of it are so close together that they have become a single sound, one thing heard from both directions at once. The intake process requires the keeper to assess each object, not for value, because the archive is not concerned with value, but for condition, for identifiability, for the question of whether the object is the kind of thing that might be claimed. A pair of glasses, almost certainly. A single glove, less likely. A book with a name written inside, possibly. The keeper makes these assessments with the half-attention of long practice and the future memories of having made them before, and the two sources of knowledge fold into each other so smoothly that it would be difficult to say, in any given moment, which one is doing the work. That is what the archive does to the rule. It makes it comfortable, not invisible. The keeper is always aware of it, the way you are always aware of your own breathing once you start paying attention to it. But awareness is not the same as difficulty. The rule sits here like a colleague. It occupies the other desk and does not make demands. There is a particular pleasure in handling an object whose future memory is already well worn. The ceramic mug on shelf 7, for instance. The keeper has handled it in future memory, enough times that picking it up now feels like greeting something familiar, and the weight of it in the hand is exactly the weight that was expected, and the chip at the rim is exactly where it was remembered to be. And there is a quiet satisfaction in that exactness, not triumph, not relief, just the small pleasure of a thing being what it was known to be. The keeper sets it down again with a soft knock against the shelf, and the sound is the same sound it always is. Not every object is like this. Some things on the shelves carry no future memory at all, or carry only a faint one, a sense of having been near them without the specific texture of handling them. and those objects sit differently on their shelves, with a quality of openness that is neither welcoming nor closed. The keeper catalogs them the same way. The ledger does not distinguish between objects the keeper has future memories of, and objects the keeper does not. The number is the same kind of number either way. The ledger itself is a thing the keeper has strong future memories of, the specific resistance of its pages, the way the binding has loosened slightly on the left side, so that the cover falls open past perpendicular if you don't hold it, the particular blue of the ruled lines that has faded in the older sections to something closer to gray. The keeper has future memories of this ledger going forward far enough that it seems likely the same ledger will be in use for some time, yet, which is useful information only in the sense that it means no new ledger needs to be requisitioned, and the keeper has noted this without particular feeling. There is a colleague who comes in mid-morning, most days, and sets a cup down on the corner of the intake counter, with the same soft knock that the transit staff make when they deliver objects, and there is a slight pause before speaking, just a breath, the ordinary beat of checking whether what is about to be said is present knowledge or future memory. And then the colleague says something about the manifest, or the shelving, or whether the intake room needs to be reorganized, and the keeper already knows what will be said, not always exactly, but closely enough that the conversation has the quality of something rehearsed without having been rehearsed, two people moving through an exchange that both of them remember from slightly different angles. The keeper does not find this strange, neither does the colleague. The slight pause before speaking is so common that it has become part of the texture of conversation, the way a breath between sentences is part of the texture of speech, present, necessary, unremarkable. The morning moves slowly. That is one of the things the archive does well. Time here is not urgent. The objects on the shelves are not going anywhere, and the future memories of cataloging them sit alongside the present work without rushing it, and the keeper moves through the rows with the unhurried attention of someone who has already done this and will do it again, and the doing of it now is neither more nor less than that. Just the present version of a thing that exists in multiple versions, and the present version is the one that is happening. And that is enough. The tag in the pocket, the mug on shelf. 7. The ledger open on the counter. The sound from the street above, not specific enough to be anything in particular. The keeper reaches into another box, and the hands already know what they will find. The object the hands find is a small key on a ring, and the ring has a plastic tag attached to it that was once printed with something, a room number, maybe, or a name. But the printing has worn away and left only a faint ghost of letters that the keeper cannot read. The key itself is a standard cut, the kind that opens a padlock or a small cabinet. The keeper turns it over once. There is no future memory of this key specifically. There is a faint sense of having been near it, but that is all, and the keeper catalogues it the way all the others without clear future memories get catalogued. Tag attached, number written, placed on the shelf at the end of the row where new arrivals sit until there is time to sort them properly. The key goes on the shelf with a small sound. The tag in the keeper's pocket is still there. The keeper touches it without deciding to. The intake counter has a scratch along its front edge that the keeper has future memories of, from so far back that it is impossible to say when it was made, which means it was made before the keeper's time here, and will still be there long after, and the scratch is just part of what the counter is, the way the chip is part of what the mug is. The keeper runs a thumb along it sometimes when standing at the counter, not for any reason, just because the body knows it is there. The colleague has not arrived yet. The morning is still early enough that the archive is quiet, and the keeper works through the new arrivals without interruption, and the work has the quality it always has at this hour, not peaceful exactly, but contained. The objects come out of the box one at a time. Each one gets its number. A folded piece of paper, blank on the outside. The keeper opens it and finds a list of items, handwritten, which might be a shopping list or a packing list or something else entirely, and there is no name on it and no date, and the keeper folds it again and attaches the tag and writes the number and sets it on the shelf. Future memory of this paper, none. It will sit on the shelf the way things sit that no one remembers to claim. The mug on shelf 7 catches the overhead light at a particular angle when the keeper passes, and the chip at the rim is exactly where it always is. There is a quality to the archive in the morning that the keeper has thought about, occasionally, without arriving anywhere with the thinking. It is the quality of a place where the future memories are so dense and so well worn that the present moment moves through them with the ease of a path that has been traveled enough to become smooth. The keeper is not sure this is a good description, but it is the closest one available, and the keeper has never needed a better one, because the thing itself is always right here, present, not requiring description to function. The ledger sits open on the counter. The last number written is 4617. The keeper writes 4618 on the next line and attaches the corresponding tag to the folded paper, and the pen moves with the particular ease of a motion that future memory has made automatic, and the number is clear and even on the page. The tag in the pocket is 4T71. There are still 146 numbers between it and now. That is not a meaningful observation. Numbers in the ledger are not a measure of time, because the archive does not work at a fixed pace, and some days have many entries and some days have few, and the keeper has future memories of the tag being attached to the small wooden box without any sense of how many entries came between. The gap between 4T71 and whatever number the ledger will be at when the box arrives is not something the keeper knows, and the not knowing sits in the pocket alongside the tag, both of them waiting with the same quality of patience, which is not patience so much as it is the absence of urgency. The keeper closes the box of new arrivals and sets it aside. The shelf at the end of the row has 7 new objects on it now, each tagged, each numbered, each waiting for the sorting that will happen later in the morning when the colleague arrives and the two of them work through the rows together. The 7 objects sit with the particular stillness of things that have been placed deliberately, and the keeper looks at them for a moment before moving back to the ledger. The sound from the street above shifts slightly. A heavier vehicle passing, maybe, or something being moved on the pavement, and then settles back into the general murmur that is always there, and the keeper does not look up. The keeper takes the break at mid-morning, which is when the archive is quietest, before the colleague arrives and before the occasional visitor comes to check whether something has been brought in. The break is not long. It is enough time to walk to the transit platform at the end of the block and stand there for a few minutes, which is a habit that started for no particular reason and has continued for no particular reason, the way many habits continue, because the body has learned the route and the route has become part of the day. The platform is underground, reached by a short flight of stairs that the keeper has walked so many times that the foot knows each step before it arrives. The railing is cool in the morning. The light at the bottom is the flat, even light of a space without windows, and it falls on the platform the same way every day, and the keeper does not think about it. What the keeper does think about, or rather what the keeper notices without quite deciding to, is the faces. There are always faces on the platform, people waiting, people arriving, people moving toward the exit, people standing with their hands in their pockets, looking at the display that shows the next departure. Most of them are strangers in the ordinary sense, people the keeper does not know and will not speak to and will not see again. But some of them are strangers in the other sense, which is to say they are faces the keeper has already seen in future memory without ever having seen them in the present. And those two things are not the same, and the gap between them is the thing the keeper is always quietly aware of on the platform. It is not a dramatic awareness. It does not feel like recognition in the way that recognition usually feels, which is the sudden collapse of distance between a remembered face and a present one. It feels more like reading a word you know how to pronounce, but have never heard spoken aloud. The word is familiar, the shape of it is familiar, but there is a register missing, and the absence of that register is its own kind of texture. The keeper stands near the far end of the platform, where there is a bench that is usually empty at this hour, and watches the people without watching them, which is a skill that everyone on the platform has, to some degree, because everyone there has future memories of the people around them, and everyone has learned that looking too directly at a face you already know from ahead tends to make the present moment feel slightly out of place, slightly ahead of itself, as if the meeting has already happened, and the present is only catching up. So people look sideways. They look at the display, or at the floor, or at the middle distance, and they let the faces arrive at the edge of their attention rather than the center of it. This is not avoidance. It is a kind of courtesy, or a kind of hygiene. The same instinct that makes you not read the end of something before you have reached it, even if you already know what it says. The keeper has a future memory of a conversation on this platform. It is not a significant conversation. It is the kind of conversation that happens between strangers when one of them needs something and the other is simply the nearest available person. In the future memory, a man with a gray jacket asks for directions. The keeper gives them. The man thanks the keeper and moves toward the exit. That is the whole of it. The keeper has carried this future memory for some time without knowing when it will resolve. And on most mornings, the keeper scans the platform without particular intention, not looking for the gray jacket, but aware of it, in the way you are aware of a sound you expect to hear eventually. This morning, a man in a gray jacket is standing near the middle of the platform. The keeper does not move toward him. The keeper sits on the bench and lets the morning continue at its own pace, because the future memory is clear enough that the keeper knows the man will come this way. And moving toward a future memory has a particular quality of forcing that the keeper has learned to avoid, not because forcing is wrong, but because it tends to make the memory feel less like something arriving and more like something being performed. And the difference between those two things is noticeable in the body, in the way the moment lands. The man does not come this way. He boards the train when it arrives, and the train leaves, and the keeper watches the platform settle back into its ordinary state. The gray jacket is gone. The future memory of the conversation is still there, unchanged, still ahead of the present, still already known, not yet arrived. This is the thing about future memory that the keeper has spent the most time sitting with, not because it is troubling, but because it is the most interesting part of how the memory works. It is not precise in the way that a record is precise. A record says, "This happened at this time, in this place." A future memory says, "This will happen," and the quality of the light was a certain way, and the person's voice had a particular register. but the time is not attached, and the place is approximate. And the details that feel most vivid are not always the details that turn out to matter. The gray jacket was vivid. The question about directions was vivid. Both of these, it seems, were close, but not exact, and the actual conversation, when it happens, will be close, but not exact to the memory. And that is how it almost always works. The keeper has thought about why this is, in the idle way that you think about things that have no practical answer. The closest the keeper has come to anything useful is this: future memory is not a recording. It is more like the way you know a room you have been in many times. You know the general shape of it. You know where the door is, and roughly where the furniture sits. But if someone asked you to draw it precisely, you would find that some things are slightly wrong, slightly off. Because what you carry is not a photograph, but a kind of accumulated sense of the room, built from many visits, and the visits themselves have blurred together into something that is mostly right, but not exactly right. Future memory is like that, mostly right, not exactly right. A woman sits down at the other end of the bench. The keeper does not look at her directly. She has a bag on her lap, and she is looking at the display, and there is a future memory of her face. Not this morning's face, but a face from further ahead, from a moment the keeper cannot place, in which she is standing somewhere. The keeper does not recognize, and looking at something outside the frame of the memory. The keeper knows her face the way you know a word in a language you are still learning, well enough to recognize it, not well enough to know what it belongs to. She sets her bag down beside her feet, the soft knock of it settling on the platform floor. The keeper looks at the display. The next train is 4 minutes away. The platform has a particular quality of sound that the keeper has noticed over many mornings without ever deciding to notice it. It is not quiet. There is always the hum of ventilation and the occasional announcement and the sound of feet on the stairs and the general movement of people. But the sound is even, without peaks, and it sits under everything the way the sound of a building system sits under a room, present but not demanding attention. The keeper finds this quality restful, which is part of why the mid-morning break ends up here, rather than somewhere else. The 4 minutes pass. The train arrives with the sound it always makes, which the keeper knows from future memory, the way you know a sound you have heard every day, and the doors open and people move in and out, and the woman with the bag boards, and the platform empties slightly, and the keeper watches the train leave, and then looks at the bench, and then looks at the stairs. There is a man at the bottom of the stairs who has just arrived. He is not wearing a gray jacket. He is wearing something dark, and he has a bag over one shoulder. And he is looking at the display with the slight pause that everyone has, that breath before moving, the moment of checking. Is this present knowledge or future memory? Is this something I know because I am standing here, or something I know because I have already stood here in a memory from ahead? The keeper recognizes the pause because the keeper does it too, has always done it, does it so automatically now that it only becomes visible when watching someone else do it. And then it is very visible, very clear, the tiny stillness before the body commits to the next motion. The man looks at the display, and then moves toward the platform, and the keeper looks away. The tag is in the pocket. The keeper does not take it out. There is no reason to take it out on the platform. It belongs to the archive, to the shelf, to the particular quality of the catalog room in the morning, but the keeper is aware of it, the way you are aware of something in a pocket, its small rectangular weight, its worn edges, the number stamped into it that the keeper has read so many times that it is no longer a number that requires reading, just a shape that the fingers know. The future memory of the wooden box is still ahead somewhere, still arriving, the box sitting in someone's hands before it is set on the counter, and the keeper writes the number and attaches the tag, and the tag finds the object it has been waiting for. The keeper does not know if the box is close or far. The future memory has no time attached to it, which is the way of things the keeper has learned not to push against. The stairs are ahead. The break is almost done. The keeper stands, and the bench is empty again, and the platform continues its even sound, and the display shows the next departure, and the people waiting do not look at each other directly, and the keeper walks toward the stairs with the particular ease of a route that has been walked enough to become automatic, and the foot finds each step before it arrives, and the railing is cool, and the light at the top is the different light of the street, and the archive is at the end of the block, and the colleague will have arrived by now. And the morning will continue in the way that the keeper already knows it will continue, which is to say, ordinarily, without drama, with the small satisfactions of work that has a clear method and a clear purpose and a place for everything that comes through the door. The street is the street. The keeper walks it. The archive door has a particular resistance at the hinge that the keeper has never had repaired, not because repair is difficult, but because the resistance has become part of returning, a small push that marks the transition between the street and the inside, and the keeper pushes through it now, and the room is the same as it was left, which is always slightly surprising and never surprising at all. The colleague is at the desk near the window, going through the intake log, which is the task that gets done first when the colleague arrives, because the colleague prefers to begin with something that has a clear end. The keeper knows this from years of working in the same room, but also from future memory, because the colleague appears in future memories, the way familiar people tend to, frequently in the background, doing exactly what they would be doing anyway. The keeper hangs the jacket on the hook near the door. The colleague does not look up. This is not rudeness. It is the ordinary absorption of someone in the middle of a task. And the keeper does not require acknowledgement, and the room settles back into its working quiet, which is a different quiet from the platform's quiet, more purposeful, the quiet of a place where attention is being paid to something. The tag is still in the pocket. The keeper takes it out now, not because there is something to do with it, but because the pocket is not the right place for it, and sets it on the edge of the desk where it will be visible, where it will be part of the room's order rather than outside it. The worn edges catch the light from the window in a small way. The number on it is the number the keeper already knows by shape, and looking at it now does not add anything to that knowledge. But looking at it is still something the keeper does, a kind of checking in, the way you glance at a clock, not because you need to know the time, but because the clock is there and the glance is automatic. The colleague turns a page in the intake log. The keeper thinks about the man on the platform, the one who arrived at the bottom of the stairs near the end of the break, the one who stood for a moment with that particular stillness before moving. The keeper does not know him. There is no future memory of him, or if there is, it is not yet surfaced in any way the keeper can identify, and the absence of a future memory is its own kind of information. It suggests that whatever connection might exist, if any exists at all, is either very far ahead or very minor. The kind of moment that leaves no trace in the memory, because it requires nothing from either person. Most moments are like that. Most people are like that. This is something the keeper has had to learn to hold without it feeling like a loss, because the first instinct, when you become aware of future memory and what it can contain, is to assume that the absence of a memory means the absence of significance, and that is not quite right. Future memory selects for things that require the keeper's attention in some way. things that will involve a decision or a response or a sustained contact. And the man at the bottom of the stairs may simply be someone who passes through without requiring any of those things, and that is not a diminishment of him. It is just a description of how the memory works. The tag sits on the edge of the desk. The colleague finishes the intake log and closes it, and sets it to the side and looks up, and there is a brief exchange about what came in during the morning, which was nothing, and about whether anything is expected, which is uncertain, and about the catalog room, and whether the shelving on the back wall needs to be reorganized before the next intake, which it probably does. And this conversation is so close to the future memory of it, that the keeper notices the closeness the way you notice when a sound matches a pitch you were already holding in your head. Not startling, just confirming, a small internal settling. The colleague goes to the catalog room. The keeper stays at the desk and looks at the tag and thinks about the platform, about the way the display showed the departures in their even sequence, about the woman with the bag and her face that belongs to a future memory. The keeper cannot yet place, about the gray jacket that was close but not exact, about the man who stood still at the bottom of the stairs and then moved on. The platform holds all of these in the same space at the same time, and nobody on it is troubled by this, or nobody shows it, because the gap between knowing and meeting is not a wound, it is just a condition. The way a step you know is coming is still a step you have to take. The morning continues. The repair workshop is 3 minutes from the archive on foot, which is close enough that the keeper has walked there many times without planning to, the way you walk somewhere when your feet know the route and your mind is still on something else. It sits in a narrow building that was probably a storage unit before it was anything else. The ceiling is low, the floor is concrete, and the walls have been fitted with shelving that holds tools and parts and objects in various states of being taken apart or put back together. There is a smell to the place that the keeper has never quite named, metal and oil, and something drier underneath, like wood dust or old paper. And it is not unpleasant, it is just particular, the kind of smell that belongs to one specific room and no other. The keeper goes there after the colleague leaves for the catalog room. Not for any reason the archive requires. Just because the morning has been slow and the tag is in the pocket and the walk will do something for the quality of the afternoon. This is a thing the keeper has learned to trust, that future memory sometimes nudges toward a place without explaining why, and that following the nudge is usually more productive than sitting still and waiting for the reason to arrive. The workshop is run by 2 people, though only one is there when the keeper arrives. Her name is Sina. She is at the main bench, which runs the length of the far wall, and she is working on something small, a hinge mechanism from what looks like an old case, the kind with brass fittings and a latch that has been sprung. She does not look up when the keeper comes in, which is normal. The workshop does not have a bell or a chime. You enter and you wait, or you find a stool and sit, and eventually the person at the bench will finish the thought they are in the middle of and turn around. The keeper finds the stool near the door and sits. The bench is covered in the small archaeology of repair, a tin of screws sorted by size, a cloth folded into quarters and already darkened with use, a row of tools hung on a pegboard behind the bench with the outline of each tool drawn in marker on the board so that the absence of a tool is immediately visible. The keeper has always found this practical. You don't need future memory to know what's missing if the shape of the thing is already there on the wall. Senna sets the hinge down and picks up a different tool, something narrow, for getting into the mechanism, and works for another minute without speaking. Then she sets that down too. The sound of it against the bench is soft, a small knock, and she turns around. She has the same slight pause before speaking that most people have, that beat of checking, and then she says the keeper is early, which is not quite right since there was no agreed time. But the keeper understands what she means. Her future memory had the keeper arriving later in the day, and the present has come ahead of schedule. This happens. Future memory is not a clock. It gives sequence more reliably than timing, and timing drifts. The keeper says something about the morning being quiet. Senna nods and turns back to the hinge. She is not being rude. She is just in the middle of something, and the workshop has always operated on the understanding that the work comes first and conversation fills in around it. The keeper has always found this comfortable. There is no performance required. You can sit on the stool and watch, and the watching is enough. What Sina is doing with the hinge is not straightforward. The latch has been sprung in a way that bent the inner plate, and the inner plate is what the hinge mechanism depends on. And so the question is not just how to straighten the plate, but whether straightening it will hold, or whether the metal has been stressed past the point where it will take the correction and stay corrected. This is the kind of question that, in other kinds of work, you answer by testing. You try the repair, you see if it holds, you adjust. But in the workshop, the approach is different, and it has been different for as long as the workshop has existed, because the people who work here have learned to use future memory, the way a carpenter checks grain, not to know what should happen, but to know what will. Senna does not test the repair and then check. She checks first. She holds the piece in her hands and waits for the future memory of it to surface. Not a vision, nothing like that. Just the ordinary quiet arrival of a memory that belongs to a moment ahead. The memory of handling this same piece again, of whether it resists or gives, of whether the latch closes cleanly or catches. From that memory, she works backward to what the repair needs to be now, in this moment, to produce that outcome. The keeper watches this and thinks about Fragment D, the craftsperson who described how they use future memory to know which repairs will hold, not which ones should hold, which ones will. The distinction matters. Should is about material properties and technique and the logic of how things behave under stress. Will is about the actual object, this specific hinge, this specific metal, which has its own history of stress and correction that theory cannot fully account for. Future memory reaches past the theory to the object itself. But the memory drifts. This is what the keeper thinks about, sitting on the stool. The memory drifts. Fragment D carries the detail of a repair. The future memory showed as failed, a joint or a fitting that the memory said would not hold, and it held. The craftsperson. Not Senna, someone else, someone the keeper has only met twice, described this without distress, and that is the right way to hold it, without distress. Future memory is not a guarantee. It is a strong suggestion. The object does not always cooperate. Metal has its own opinion about what it will do, and sometimes the memory and the metal disagree. And when they disagree, you note it, and you adjust your understanding of the memory, and you continue. Sina sets the tool down again. Another soft knock against the bench. She says, without turning around, that the plate will take the correction. She says it the way you say something you have already confirmed, because she has already confirmed it in the future memory of the piece sitting closed and latched in its case, and the memory was clear enough that she is not uncertain. The keeper does not ask how she knows. That would be like asking how she knows to use the narrow tool for the mechanism. It is just what the work requires, and the work is what she understands. The keeper takes the tag out of the pocket and holds it for a moment. The tag that belongs to an object already known, not yet arrived. The keeper has not thought about the tag consciously since leaving the archive, but the hand found it anyway, the way hands find things they are used to holding. Sina turns around now and looks at the tag. She knows about it, in the way that people in a small radius of daily life tend to know each other's persistent objects. Not because they have been told, but because the tag has appeared in enough future memories, sitting on the edge of a desk or turning in a pocket, that it has become part of the background of the keeper's presence. She does not ask about it. She just looks, and the look is a kind of acknowledgement, and then she turns back to the bench. The keeper puts the tag away. What the workshop does with future memory is not special in the sense of being unusual. Everyone has future memory, and most people use it in practical ways throughout the day, checking what they know of the next hour or the next week the way you check a list before leaving the house. But the workshop has made the practice explicit in a way that most places have not. There are notes on the bench, written in Sina's hand and in the hand of the other person who works here, notes about specific objects and what the future memory of them showed, and whether the memory proved accurate, and how far off it was if it wasn't. These notes are not a system. They are more like a running record of how the memory behaves in this particular context, with these particular materials, and what adjustments are needed to work with it well. The keeper has looked at these notes before. They are not organized in any formal way. Written on whatever paper was available, sometimes on the back of an order form or a receipt, tucked under the edge of the tin of screws, or folded and slipped under the pegboard. But they are all there, and they accumulate, and the accumulation is what makes the workshop function the way it does. Not because the future memory is perfect, but because the record of where it drifts has made that drift predictable. This is something the keeper finds useful to think about. The drift is predictable, not in the sense that you can calculate it, but in the sense that it has patterns, and the patterns can be learned, and learning them is part of the craft. A repair that future memory shows as holding will usually hold, and when it doesn't, the failure tends to happen in a specific way. A specific kind of stress, a specific kind of material, a specific kind of correction that the memory consistently overestimates. Sena knows this. It is in the notes. It is in her hands. The hinge is done. Sina holds it up and works the latch a few times, and it opens and closes without catching, and she sets it on the cloth and looks at it for a moment in the way that people look at finished things, not admiring, just confirming, checking the present against the memory, and finding them close enough. She wipes her hands on the cloth and turns around fully for the first time since the keeper arrived. She asks how the archive is. The keeper says the day is slow. The keeper says there was a morning intake that turned out to be nothing, and the catalog room needs reorganizing, and the colleague is probably already in there moving shelves. Sena listens with the particular quality of attention that people in the workshop tend to have, not waiting for something interesting, just present, following the thread of what is being said without needing it to go anywhere specific. She says her future memory of the afternoon has her finishing 2 more pieces before the end of the day, and she is not sure about the third. And the third is the one she is less certain of, because the memory of it is less clear, which usually means the repair is more complicated than it looks, or that the object has a history the memory cannot fully account for. She says this, the way you say something practical, the way you say the weather looks uncertain, with no particular weight attached to it. The keeper nods. There is a quality to the workshop in the middle of the day that is different from the archive, different from the platform. The archive holds its quiet in a particular way. The quiet of things waiting, of objects on shelves that have been set down and not yet picked up again. The platform holds its quiet differently, in the gaps between arrivals, in the moment after the display updates, and before anyone moves. The workshop's quiet is the quiet of work in progress, of a task that has been interrupted and will resume, of tools on a pegboard with their shapes drawn in marker, so the absence of any one of them is visible at a glance. The keeper stays a little while longer, not for any reason the day requires, just because the stool is comfortable and the smell of the workshop is particular and familiar, and because Sina has already turned back to the bench and picked up the next piece. The sound of her working, the small adjustments, the occasional knock of a tool being set down and picked up again, is the kind of sound that makes a room feel occupied in a way that is easy to be inside. The tag is in the pocket. The future memory of the wooden box that belongs to it is still there, still without a time attached to it, still just a memory of a moment that will come without announcing itself. The keeper is not waiting for it. Waiting implies a kind of tension that the memory does not produce. It is more like knowing that a familiar sound will eventually come from the next room. Not listening for it, not tracking the silence before it, just knowing it will be there when it is there, and that when it comes, it will be exactly as ordinary as the memory suggests. Senna sets something down, the soft knock of it against the bench. The keeper stands, says something brief about getting back, and Sina says something brief in return, and neither of them makes more of the visit than it was, which was nothing much, which was enough. The park is not far. A few minutes from the workshop, less than that from the archive side entrance, and the keeper has walked the path between them enough times that the route is held in the body rather than in thought. The slight drop in the pavement near the second bench, the place where the path narrows before it opens again into the wider stretch of grass. It is a small park, the kind that exists because a building was taken down and nothing was built in its place, and someone planted grass and put in a few benches and called it done. There are 2 trees near the far edge. A low iron fence runs along the street side. In the middle of the day it holds a handful of people, someone eating from a container, someone reading, a person sitting with their eyes closed and their face turned toward whatever light is coming through the clouds. The keeper finds the usual bench, the one near the second tree, and sits. The thing about the park is that it does not ask anything of you. The archive asks a kind of attention. Objects need to be handled, numbered, placed. The workshop asks attention of a different kind, focused and practical. Even the platform asks something, if only the task of moving through it without losing your thread. The park asks nothing. You can sit and let the 2 versions of a moment, the one arriving now, the one carried from ahead, exist alongside each other without having to do anything about them. That is what the keeper comes here for, when the day has accumulated enough that the 2 versions start to feel less like a comfortable overlap and more like 2 sheets of paper that are not quite aligned, and the slight misalignment has started to be noticeable. Today, it is not bad. The day has been ordinary in the way that ordinary days are. The archive in the morning, the tag in the pocket, the walk to the platform, the workshop, and Sina, and the smell of the solvent and the soft knock of tools. Nothing has asked more than it should, but there is still the habit of coming here, and the habit is its own reason, and so the keeper sits. The future memory of this moment is already there, as it always is. Not a dramatic thing, just the slight awareness that this sitting, this bench, this quality of midday light coming through the trees, it is already known, not yet arrived, and yet here it is, arriving exactly as it was known to be. The two versions settle against each other. They are close, they are almost identical. The small differences are the only interesting part. The grass is a particular shade, unremarkable, until you notice you are looking at it. And then it is briefly very real. A bird moves across the far edge of the grass, and then is gone. The person with their face turned toward the light shifts slightly, resettles, does not open their eyes. The keeper reaches into the pocket. The tag is there. It has been there all day, as it has been there for some time now. The slight weight of it, the worn edges, the stamped number that belongs to an object that has not arrived. Fragment C sits in the memory, the way it always does. A small wooden box, unremarkable, the kind of thing that would come in on an ordinary day and be catalogued without ceremony. The future memory of it is clear enough. The weight of the box in the hands, the way the lid fits, the particular grain of the wood. What it does not have is a time. Most future memories carry a sense of when, not a precise date, but a texture of proximity. This is close, this is far, this is soon. The memory of the wooden box has no such texture. It is simply there, in the future, without any indication of how much future stands between now and then. This does not trouble the keeper. It is just a quality of that particular memory, the way some objects in the archive have very little information attached to them, and you catalog what you have and leave the rest blank. The tag turns once in the fingers. Then the keeper sets it on the knee, still holding it loosely, and looks at the trees. There is a fragment that comes sometimes when the keeper sits in this park, and it comes now, quietly, the way familiar things arrive. It is fragment F, a future memory of sitting here again in a different season. The light has a different angle, the trees are different, either fuller or emptier. It is hard to say which. The quality of the light in the memory matches the quality of the light now, which is strange because the season is different, but there it is. The keeper noticed this the first time the fragment arrived and has noticed it each time since. The two moments, the one happening now, the one in the memory, do not feel like two separate things. They feel like one thing seen from both ends. The way a corridor looks different depending on which end you stand in, but is still the same corridor. The present moment does not feel diminished by this. If anything, it feels more itself, more settled, more complete, as if the future memory of it is a kind of confirmation that it is real, that it happened, that it will have happened. Some people find this quality of the park unsettling, the way the two versions press close here. The keeper does not find it unsettling, just close, just the two sheets of paper lying nearly on top of each other, and the small differences visible only at the edges. Someone sits down on the bench at the other end of the row. The keeper does not look directly, just the awareness of another presence, the slight shift in the ambient sound of the park. The person sits quietly. They do not eat. They do not read. They are probably doing what the keeper is doing, which is sitting and letting the two versions of the moment settle. This is what the park is for, in the end, not a formal thing. There is no sign, no designation. But people come here for this, and everyone who comes here knows that everyone else who comes here is doing the same thing, and so there is a particular quality to the quiet of the park that is different from other silences. Not the silence of waiting, not the silence of work, but the silence of two versions of a moment sitting quietly next to each other while the people who carry them do the same. The tag is still on the knee. The keeper picks it up again, holds it for a moment, and then puts it back in the pocket. The wooden box will come when it comes. The memory of it is patient. The keeper has learned to be patient with memories that carry no time, because pushing against them produces nothing. The memory does not clarify, the time does not reveal itself, the object does not arrive any sooner. You carry the memory the way you carry any knowledge that has no immediate application, lightly, without gripping it. The bird from before, or a different bird, moves across the grass again. The person with their face turned to the light has opened their eyes now and is looking at something across the park, and then they close their eyes again. The keeper thinks about the end of the day, not anxiously, just the way you think about a thing that is coming and is familiar. The future memory of locking the archive is there. The specific weight of the key, the sound of the mechanism, the way the door settles into its frame. And then the memory of the walk back, and then the memory of the morning, the light through the catalog room window, the smell of the room before the day has fully started. These are not things to be done. They are just there, in the memory, waiting to be lived through, and the living through them will be exactly as ordinary as the memory suggests, and that is enough, and it has always been enough. The park holds its particular quiet, the grass, the trees, the low iron fence with the street beyond it, the sound of the street coming through at a distance. The keeper sits with all of it, the present version and the future version, the bench that is being sat on now, and the bench that will be sat on again in a different season, the tag in the pocket, and the wooden box that belongs to it, and is somewhere in the future without a time attached. There is no urgency in any of this. There never is here. The future memory does not demand to be met. It does not pull you forward or make the present feel like a delay. It just sits alongside, the way a second heartbeat would sit alongside the first, constant, close, unremarkable, and intimate, in the way that only constant things can be intimate, the way you stop noticing them precisely because they are always there. The keeper stands. The movement is unhurried. The tag settles in the pocket as the keeper straightens, and the future memory of standing up from this bench, which was already there, already known, not yet arrived until this moment, is now the present moment, and then it is the past, and the transition is so smooth, it is barely a transition at all. The walk back to the archive is the same walk it always is, the slight drop in the pavement near the second bench, the place where the path narrows, the side entrance with its particular door, the handle worn where hands have held it. The keeper goes through, and the door settles behind, and the archive receives the return the way it always does. With the quiet of objects on shelves, with the smell of the catalog room, with the particular stillness of a place where things have been set down and are waiting, without any urgency to be picked up again. The tag comes out of the pocket one more time. The keeper sets it on the desk, the soft knock of metal against wood, and looks at the number stamped into it, and the number is just a number, and the wooden box is somewhere in the future without a time attached to it, and the day is nearly done. The future memory of tomorrow morning is already there, quiet and familiar. The light through the window, the smell of the room, the slow beginning of another ordinary day. The keeper locks up, the key turns, the door settles. The future memory of tomorrow is already there. The day sits complete on both sides at once. The walk home is not long. The keeper knows it the way the keeper knows the archive, not by thinking about it, but by the body moving through it, the particular sequence of turns, the place where the pavement is uneven, the smell of the bakery that is closed by this hour, but still holds a trace of itself in the air near its door. The future memory of the walk is there, as it always is. Not all of it, just the parts that are distinct enough to carry forward. The uneven pavement, the smell near the bakery door, the moment when the street opens and the building comes into view. The rest is the kind of ordinary movement that leaves no particular impression, even in memory, and so it arrives without announcement and passes the same way. The tag is in the pocket still. The keeper had meant to leave it on the desk, had set it there, had looked at the number, and then picked it up again without fully deciding to, the way you pick up a small object that has been in your hand for a long time and feels wrong to leave behind. It is not a rational thing. The wooden box is in the future without a time attached, and carrying the tag does not change that, and the keeper knows this and carries the tag anyway. The building, when it comes into view, is the same building it always is. Nothing about it changes between morning and evening except the light, and the light is not the interesting part. What the keeper notices, coming home, is the quality of the future memory of it, the memory of approaching this building, this door, this threshold, and how it sits exactly on top of the present moment. The way the memory of the park bench sat on top of the bench in the park, the two versions nearly identical, the small differences visible only if you were looking for them. The difference tonight is small. A window on the second floor that is lit in the present moment, but not in the future memory, which means the light will be off by the time the future memory was formed, or the future memory is from a different night, or the light simply did not register. These things are not always resolvable. The keeper notes it and moves on. Inside, the building has its own quality of quiet, not the archive's quiet. That is a quiet of objects, of things that have been set down. This is a quiet of people who are elsewhere in their own rooms, doing their own settling, the kind of quiet that is made of small sounds rather than absence of sound. A door somewhere, water moving through pipes, the particular creak of the floor in the hall. The keeper goes up. The stairs are familiar in the feet. The room, when the keeper reaches it, is the room it always is. The window that faces the street, the desk near it, the shelf with the objects on it, the particular arrangement of things that has accumulated over time, without being deliberately arranged, the way a life accumulates, rather than being placed. The future memory of the room is there, the way it is always there, sitting just behind the present version of it, and the two are close enough that the keeper does not need to look carefully to find the differences. The tag goes on the desk. This time, it stays. The keeper stands at the window for a moment. The street below has the quality of a street in the evening, not empty, not full, just the ordinary movement of people at the end of a day, some moving with purpose, some not. The future memory of standing here is already known. The keeper does not try to match the two versions precisely. That is not the point of having them both. The point is simply that they are both there, and that the present one is happening, and that the happening of it is enough. The wooden box will come. The memory of it, the weight, the lid, the grain of the wood, is patient, and the keeper has learned to be patient with it, and there is nothing more to do about it tonight. The keeper moves away from the window. The day has been what it was. The archive, the tag, the platform, the workshop, and Sina and the smell of the solvent, the park and its particular quiet, the walk back, the threshold, the room. All of it ordinary. all of it already known in the way that this world knows things, from both ends at once, the memory arriving before the moment, and the moment arriving exactly as the memory said it would. The future memory of sleep is there, not detailed. Sleep rarely carries much forward, just the sense of it, the weight of the body settling, the particular way the room sounds when the day is fully done. The keeper knows this memory, has known it since some time before tonight. It is not interesting. It is just there, the way all the small familiar memories are there, constant and close and unremarkable, and the unremarkableness of it is its own kind of comfort, steady and plain and enough. The tag sits on the desk. The number stamped into it catches what light there is. The wooden box is somewhere in the future, waiting without urgency to be what it already is in the memory. Small, wooden, ordinary, real. The keeper does not look at the tag again. There is no need. It will be there in the morning, and the morning will be what the future memory of it already suggests. The light through the window, the smell of the room, the slow return to the archive, and the objects waiting on their shelves. That is all. That is the whole of it.